Hi, my name is Peter Larkum, and this is Mentality Meets. So we've been doing this through the whole process of lockdown, and to be honest, right now, it feels like it's been going on a lot longer than we were expecting. So we're with Chandos Green today, which is very exciting for me because I've known Chandos since before Christmas, and we're now in June, and I've only met him once. But we've been meeting on Zoom calls, and he's been attending the different mentality meets, and it's finally an opportunity for me to get to know him a little bit better. So we're going to be talking all things mental health. So I hope you enjoy this. This is Mentality Meets. So, as always, we have an opportunity to welcome you to Mentality Meets. So let me just go through some of the ground rules for Mentality Meets, just so as we all know where we are coming from. During this time, so it's me, Peter Larkum, and I have I never know which way to point on the screen of where Chandy is for us today. But we're going to be talking all things mental health, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which means that we are going to be raw and real with how our journeys are going. We have been in this lockdown process now for a longer time than I was expecting. And oh my gosh, this week, I have felt it. Now, I don't know about you. And also, we don't know anything about you. We don't know whether you are experiencing mental health illnesses, whether you have experienced mental health illnesses. We don't know any information about you. So if you need help and support, you have a couple of ways to do this. So in a minute, I'm going to introduce you to your chat bar and get some chats going. But you can send me a private message and you can say, Pete, I'm really struggling. Can you help? And I'll try and get you some help and support. You will also have access to 116123, which is the Samaritans. So if you need to, please reach out, give them a call. 116123, totally free, totally anonymous. Also, what we are promoting on the Mentality Meets is the hubofhope.co.uk. So if you put in www.hubofhope.co.uk, you can put in your postcode. And as you put in your postcode, it will show you all the mental health provision for your local area. This is important because if you're supporting someone somewhere else in the country, you can put their postcode in, and then you'll be able to find the mental health support in their local area. So please be aware of what's going on inside of you as Chandy and I are talking today. But let's start off with our chat bar, shall we? So down the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see a little chat bar. And what I would like to ask you to do is just write in a couple of pieces of information. Question number 1, what is your name? Question number 2, how many people are you in lockdown with? And Chandy, you came up with question number 3 today. What is question number 3 for our audience today?
Okay, so Jaffa cake or biscuit?
Brilliant question. Okay, so what's your name? How many people are you in lockdown with? And Jaffa cake, is it a cake or is it a biscuit? This is your third question for today. So if you can, just take a moment and write it out. If you are able to, please do share your video with us just so as we can see your happy smiley face. But I know for some people that by sharing their video, it slows their internet down and then it just becomes a little bit interesting. But Kay, thanks for the smile on that one. That was a great smile. So hi, Matt, currently in lockdown with wife and 2 kids under 6. Jaffa cake is a cake. It says so on the tin. Definitely a cake. Amy says it's a biscuit. Haven't had one for ages. At home with husband, 2 kids, 10 and 12. Kay is with one other person, and she also says that it's a cake. Lauren, 1 person and 1 dog, says it's a biscuit. Gosh, we really are kind of splitting it down the middle today. Joe, I lost that. Joe, 2 biscuit, but hobnobs is better. Joe 2, Joe 2 bit. I don't get that. But she's saying a biscuit. But hobnobs are better, so she wouldn't go for a Jaffa cake. I think I'd always go for a Jaffa cake above a hobnob. It's a biscuit. It's in a biscuit packaging, says Emmy. Helen in Oxfordshire is in lockdown with husband, and Jaffa cake is a cake. Chris in lockdown with one other person thinks it's a cake. 2 people, Joe. I got you now. So Joe is with 2 people saying that Jaffa cake is a biscuit, but hobnob is better. So Jaffa cake. Is it a cake or is it a biscuit? We won't give you a definitive answer because let's face it, we're not sponsored by anyone. I personally think it's a cake. What do you think?
Me, I think it's cake.
Why? Why do you think it's a cake? Give us your reasoning, and then I'll give you mine.
Because of the way that it goes when it goes stale. I think it doesn't like go hard. Does it go hard or does it go soft? I think it goes soft, like from my memory.
Okay, it has a spongy bit. Oh, conspiracy, says Lauren. You see, I'm with you on this. A biscuit goes soft when it goes off, and a cake goes hard when it goes off. Jaffa cakes go hard when they go off. That's kind of
True
where I'm
story.
going with a cake being a cake.
I've started saying now. There's going to be like a poll on Facebook afterwards. And
We should do that. Let's do that next time. So we should probably get started. So welcome to Mentality Meets. I'm Peter Larkum. This is Chandy Green, and we're going to be talking about all things mental health. So Chandy, you are our guest today. So what I would like to ask you is, can you give us a little bit of a kind of history of who you are, and also just what you've got going on in your life, and then we can pin you and we can have you in our screen. So let's go with that.
cool. So yeah, my name's Chandy, or my actual name is Chandos, but everyone calls me Chandy. So I'm a mental health speaker as part of the collective. I'm also an advocate for various different charities around disability and mental health. As a child, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So this was in '98, so I would have been 3. And since then, I've had 3 major brain surgeries, one in '98, one in 2001, and then one in 2014. And this was due to the tumor growing back at various points in my life. And this has left me with a physical disability down my left side. I'm also a registered social worker. So I did my degree in social work in 2014, 2017, and graduated 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago now. And I work in the charity sector now, working with various different local charities to help promote different causes, and how do we looking at different ways we can educate our social workers to be better communicators, but looking at the lived experience of people.
Amazing. I find it fascinating that you have been through 3 brain surgeries, and your first one when you were 3 years old, and just kind of the impact that has had. Now, it went in our pre-chat, so just to let everyone know, during our sessions, I always meet with the speakers, and we have a bit of a pre-chat. And I have a question again to go out to everybody in the chat. And Chandy, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Chandy wanted a nap before our chat, which I thought was a brilliant idea. And I need to ask, does anyone else go for a nap? You know what? When was the last time you just curled up and had a nap? No reason, just because you wanted one. That's going to be my question out to everybody on the chat. When was the last time you curled up in a ball and just had a nap for the sake of having a nap? But then we were talking about why you needed a nap. So can you just kind of talk us through kind of the processing of kind of why and why it's important that you look after yourself in that way?
Yeah, so I'm always talking about, if you follow me on social media, I always talk about going for a nap. It's like part of my daily routine, and it's because I have OCD and I get really fatigued and tired from constantly having to manage it and to deal with the compulsions and the anxiety and the worries that I have as a result of it. And so for me, having a nap is kind of like a release and a getaway from having all those fears and those worries all of the time. And so, yeah, I think this morning was quite triggering for me with my anxiety and my OCD, as we said in our pre-chat. So being able to just go for a quick nap, even like half an hour, just helped boost my well-being a little bit and help me ground myself.
I find this fantastic. Let's just kind of go back to what the responses are on the chat. So we got yesterday from Emmy, and she says constantly go for naps. This is a good thing. Kay, I wish I could do that. Gillian says occasionally at the weekends. Lauren says yesterday. I would love to just kind of curl up in a ball and have a nap. Although, to be fair, I think my wife deserves a nap more often than I do, because she's having to deal with the kids most of the time, much more so than I. But I think kind of because of the conversation we were having, it was about the fact that you went out this morning, and you were telling me a story about how your OCD kind of kicked in. And tell us what the story was. Tell us kind of what happened, and why it became such a big thing.
Yeah, so I went to the shops as I normally do just to get a few bits and bobs, and I had to help someone, which normally would be okay. I'd do that no problems, but given the current situation in the world with COVID, I'm always looking for different like things that could put me at risk of like getting sick or ill. And so that was the first trigger, was I have to help someone and we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I like, my morals were like, no, just help the person, and like the rational side of me was like, it's fine, just wash your hands afterwards. But the OCD side of my brain and processing was like, no, even that's not going to protect you. And like it was looking for different rationale to oppose the non-irrational thought that I was having. So the thing with OCD is you have these intrusive thoughts that are quite triggering, and they lead to people doing compulsions, which are things that help them manage that, but they're not. I would say that my compulsions are not positive things. So washing my hands is a big thing, and has been in the past, and looking for reassurance from like family and friends. And so I went and I helped the person, and then I used the antibacterial gel that was on offer in the store, like for all customers and stuff. And I got home, and I just, so my home is my safe place where I know that I can just be myself and just relax. And as soon as I walked in the door, I think I washed my hands like 3 or 4 times just to be sure. And I changed my clothes, and I had a bit of like a moment where I was like trying to just do everything I could to protect myself, which I would have been fine just by like washing my hands, as we said in the pre-chat. But I think it's that, like, I'm always second guessing the thought, and the rationale that I give to it is it's fine now, you don't need to worry. And as I said to you in the chat before we started this, was like, it's like having 2 sides of my brain, and one side is like, it's going to be okay, and it's really positive and really upbeat, and the other side is really negative and like just wants to look for the bad in everything, and wants to make me doubt my own thoughts and my own well-being as a positive, and like it flips everything all the time. So that's why I go for naps, is because it's kind of like the only release of just being myself and not having these constant thoughts. And as we said before, like some days it's like a trickle, like a waterfall of just one thought after the next, and they're not my own thoughts, they're just like this OCD driven thought. So one thing I developed as a child was this idea that me and my OCD are 2 separate things. So I say my OCD to give it a label, to give it less power in my eyes, because it's not part of me.
I find it fascinating. So the context for me, as we've been talking about all these different mentality meets and meeting people who have the lived experiences, I come to this conversation from a training perspective. So I train people about mental health, but I've never personally experienced it. And when we talk about obsessive compulsive disorder, I try and get everyone to think about the obsessive compulsive tendencies that we engage with. And the way I explain this is that it's the thing that we do, not because we have to, but because it makes us happy on the inside. So when we kind of need the cushions to be a certain way, or the bed made a certain way, or the shoes nice and neat a certain way. So this is my next question out to you as the participants in this chat. What do you do? Not because you have to, but because it makes you happy on the inside. I can see, Kay, you got a whole load of kind of books or CDs kind of racked up beside you. So it might be the way that you kind of rack your books and your CDs. It could be all kinds of things. So let's, on your chat, give us some ideas of what you do, not because you have to, but because it makes you happy on the inside. Because what we were then talking about, Chandy, as all these kind of messages come in, is that it starts like that, but then it overtakes you. It becomes something that you are unable not to then do, or it gets blown out of proportion. And you were then explaining to me that it is constant. And most people, you can kind of go, okay, yeah, and the rationale kicks back in. But you're talking about it being a constant process that you are trying to overcome and beat. And I want to ask, what tips and tools have you learned over the last kind of few years, I suppose? Because I mean, this has been going on for the majority of your life. So what are some of the tools and tips that you've learned and that you've put in place to help you fight this?
Yeah, so after my second operation, so when I was 6, there was complications, and so I had to have part of my skull left out to be cleaned and to be sterilized so that they could put it back in safely. And that traumatic experience triggered the thoughts around being clean all the time, and around me getting ill if I did something, or around other people. So as a child and as a young person, a young teenager, like I had CBT and therapy around like touching the dustbin, and then the length of time I gave myself before I washed my hands was extended slowly. So that was the first kind of like tool that and positive coping strategy that I was given and equipped with. And then as I got older, I didn't find any comfort in therapy as such, and it was hard for me to maintain those tools and those things I'd learned through CBT. So it actually wasn't until I went to university and I started my degree where we looked at reflection, and around one of the things that all social workers are told to do is to keep a journal and to reflect on the experiences they have in their placements and in their, like, everything as a learning opportunity in social work. And that process of meeting people and seeing how they were dealing with different mental health conditions, and how they, like, some of the people I met had OCD themselves. And so I wasn't like, I wasn't going in to help them and just to help myself, but the way that they were telling me about their lives, and then I was going home and reflecting on it, those things that I picked up on then helped me to look at my own life and look at how on some days it doesn't feel like me doing my compulsions and like washing my hands repeatedly. I don't have any comfort in it. It's like when I'm doing that, I feel numb. So like as soon as I start washing my hands, like for the third time, my body just shuts off and I'm just numb. It's like a process of, I'm just like so tired, I just don't want to do it anymore. And like I can't then put my mind to stop my hands from washing themselves, or to stop asking for reassurance, which it's like there's like a brick wall. But in certain situations, so like when I'm out working, it's like my OCD knows that it's at work, or I'm at work, sorry, so it shuts off. It doesn't play a massive part of my life because I'm distracted and because I'm focusing on something positive. And so now I try and look at the positives in every single day. Like even if I'm having my worst day possible, if I can go to bed and I can look at one thing that's happened that day, whether it's getting a message from my best friend or from someone I haven't spoken to in a while who has shared something really positive about themselves, that reminds me that the next day is going to be better, because I can use that as a thing that, like, yeah, there are going to be really rubbish days and days where I just don't feel like doing anything because I know it's going to trigger my OCD. But there's a book called Up and Down the Worry Hill, which I read as a child, and it's like it explains OCD as like a roller coaster or going up one big hill. So you have the intrusive thought that then takes you up this big mountain, and then when you get to the top and you do your compulsion, like your coping strategy, like for me it would have been washing my hands as a child. It then brings you back down to your base level, but you don't find comfort in that for very long until you then have the same worry or a new worry up here, and then the process continues. And looking at it like that and deconstructing everything, which some days can be really time consuming, but even like this morning, like I know there are ways that I could have dealt with it better. And also I go to universities and talk about my lived experience and talk to students who are studying social work, and that is kind of like therapy for me now. So I don't tell them everything. Like I don't like have to write a book and like pour my heart to them, but just little things. So like there was one talk I gave before lockdown, and like there was quite a few triggers on the way up, like on the train, on the bus, and so I used that to like tell people like this is how it affects me. And being that open and that honest with other people, you'd be surprised at how open and honest they are with you. Like they don't like, they find comfort in that as well. Like, and it's like just being open and honest and saying that, yeah, we can have these really rubbish days where we struggle, but it's not going to be every single day that's like that. And it takes courage to admit that, you know what, I've had a really rubbish day. And that admitting that courage then leads to the next day where you feel you know what, I can tackle today. I can even just do one thing that's going to challenge my OCD or my anxiety. I know it will be positive, not immediately maybe, because I might have a small like hiccup where my OCD takes control of the day slightly, but in a few weeks time where I'm looking back and I'm like, you know what, I didn't wash my hands for the 5th or 6th time, I only did it 3 or 4 times. It then gives me confidence that, you know what, I can carry those tools forward. I hope I've
I
made
think that's,
sense.
no, it is. I think it's fascinating because it's, from what I'm kind of picking up on from what you're saying, is that there is this building of anxiety, which is kind of like that going up the hill. And the way that your brain normalizes it is through the activities that you then engage with. And so earlier I said, what are your tendencies? And so Kay definitely said books alphabetically and by author. Nice. Melissa said, I feel so much more organized when I start the day and the bed is made as soon as I wake up. I can't do that. I've got to at least have a shower first. Do you go and get a shower first, or do you literally go out of bed, make the bed, done? Is your partner still in the bed when you make the bed? How does this work? I don't know. Anyway, so Gillian says folding towels, so they're nice and neat on the towel rail. And so yeah, tea and shower first, then bed. Okay, so sorry, Melissa, we've now got clarification of what's going on with the bed making. I love this. I love the fact that you are kind of chatting in, because there are so many things that we do, not because we need to, but because there is this happiness that it creates, you know, and it can be tidiness, and it can be kind of the way we organize stuff. And what I'm hearing from you is about that. It's the only way that it actually settles you, but it settles you for such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then those anxieties begin to build again.
I think
And for me, that's where the exhaustion kicks in that we were talking about before. Go on.
I think it's important to recognize, well, like people with like, it can surprise me at times. So a few years ago, I went to Ethiopia with my school, and I was on medication at this point, which I didn't like taking anyway. And on my first day of being in Ethiopia, which I knew was going to be the most triggering environment, because I couldn't like wash my hands all the time, and there wasn't that, like, it's not, at the time it wasn't the most developed area that we were going to, so I knew that it was going to trigger my OCD, and I just stopped taking my medication, which I wouldn't recommend, like, without consulting anyone. Like, just stopping your medication is not the right route, or the right plan, like the proper course of action that you should take. But for me, it challenged me in a way that I came home and I learned so much about what limits I can take myself to before my OCD can really takes over. And I remember doing things that I never imagined, and like just being able to live in a way that was so not basic, but like it just helped me to really understand who I was. And I've used those tools now. Like some days where like I'm really struggling, I get into a routine of like one OCD thing after the next, and it's not me, it's just the OCD's day. And so I really like, I make a point of like saying, you know what, if you can do it then, and you can like challenge yourself in a way that's really positive, you can do it whenever.
No, I think that's brilliant. And you're also saying about making sure that you can focus in on the good stuff. And now one of the things which I think it was Steve Loft brought to the conversation quite a long time ago now, was about the feedback process. And he called it the rose, which I've been shouting about to as many people as I can, about the way to feedback, and how it starts off with the thorn and the stuff that's quite gnarly. But then it goes on to the bud and the things you're looking forward to, and the rose being the stuff that's actually good at the moment. And being able to acknowledge that gnarly stuff while recognizing that there is some good stuff in the pipeline, but also acknowledging that every day does have something good in it, you know. And so what I want to do now, again, kind of with the chat out there, is the good stuff. Let's just kind of focus in on something good today. This morning, when I was just kind of preparing myself for the day, a kite bird, an actual bird of prey, not an actual kite. I need to try and explain this to people. Flew just over the houses, over the way from where I am, and I just found myself just stopping and watching it, and it just being so graceful in its way, and just how I have a massive window right in front of me, and yet how little time I spend actually just enjoying the view and kind of gazing out. So I just want to ask, what's some of the good stuff that you've been able to take notice of today? So again, in your chat bar, give us some of the good stuff that's going on. And Chandy, we're about kind of 5 minutes away from the end of our session already, which is incredible. And I just want to ask, so you go out and do runs fairly regularly, and you find that's a really good source, and you're kind of you've run miles in the last few months that I've been following you. Why for you is it so important to get out and run?
I think it helps, like for me, like going on a run with either my headphones or without, like it gives me that opportunity to focus on things that I didn't like on the days where I'm walking around town or I go to the shops and I'm in that frame of mind where my OCD is in control. I don't acknowledge the small things like the color of the sky, the color of a cloud that's flying overhead. Whereas if I go for a run, I'm focusing on my next foot. And while I'm doing that, my mind is occupying itself by like the different colors. And like I live quite close to the sea. So being able to run along the seafront and just acknowledging the wave, like one wave after the next, and not in a, like it's quite a calming situation to be in. And just, it reminds you that like there's beauty in everything. And one, like it takes me back to when I was at uni, and like I found it really helpful to look at other people's lives and different stories, like really unconventional. Like I watched Eddie the Eagle, the film with that's come up recently, and like The Pursuit of Happiness, where these people are faced with different challenges. Like last night I watched The Pursuit of Happiness again, and it's like Will Smith's character was in a really tricky situation, but it was those small little wins that took him to the next one, which took him to the next one. And when we look at like things like social work in the medical profession, we want to cure someone to make them happy. We think that they have to have a cure to live the best life possible, and it's not the case. Like medication and therapies and stuff help people to cope better with their condition, but their life, like none of our lives stop the moment we have an illness or a diagnosis, and they shouldn't. We should still be able to achieve amazing things. And I think reminding myself of that as much as possible on my runs helps me to then go forward for the rest of the day. So like today I haven't been for a run, but I'll go for a walk just to give me that fresh air and to ground myself, because I think it's important to remember that like everyone's life is complex and so intertwined, and that's an amazing thing. And just because you have a diagnosis of, like for me, my brain tumor or my OCD, those are just one part or one element of my life. There's so much more to it. As I'm sure everyone in this chat today is like, there's so many things of your life that are so complex and so amazing. And once you start to look at that and think, it's okay to have days where I feel like rubbish, because you know what, tomorrow is a new day. And I love watching like Disney films, and there's one where I think it was in Kung Fu Panda, where he said, yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today's a gift. That's why it's called the present. And like things like that really remind me, like it doesn't matter how complex people want to make the world look or be, because they want to give everything a tick box to fit into. Like we can still find amazing things that give us hope and give us stuff to move forward and to keep driving forward. And I think like one of my biggest problems when I had therapy was that it was all about, in the future, this is what your life's going to be like, or this is what we can get to, not embracing what's now. And so I think it's important to embrace like the challenges, like just as much as you embrace the positives and where it's going to be in the future.
That is amazing. Chandy, we are right on the cusp of our ending. So let's kind of go back and go back to Melissa saying that going for a run through the woods and the fields. Johnny says listening to us has been a highlight. Gillian leant out the window and saw a new pink rose in the garden, and looking out the window, just taking a moment to see nature. Emmy says a honeysuckle on the dog walk smells absolutely lush. Watching Chandy's TikToks is also in there. Listening to the birds. Kay says there are 2 fledgling robins bobbing about the garden at the moment. take a cup of tea and go out and sit just for a few minutes and just feel really calm. Melissa also watched Eddie the Eagle, I think it was a film just the other week. And I love what you just said, and I think I'm going to finish on this, which is that yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift, which is why it's called the present. And I love that. And so what I want to ask for everyone who is on the call today, if you see today as a gift, what are the bits that you're going to take away and treasure from today? Because there are moments in every day that we can treasure. And Chandy, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your honesty and for the eloquence that you've talked us through obsessive compulsive disorder and just how exhausting it can be for people. And so just always remember that we have no idea what other people's lives are like. We don't know what's going on in the background. And just to remember to be kind to one another. So thank you very much, everyone. This is going to be the end of Mentality Meets for today. We are at 3:31. I'm sorry that we have overrun by 1 entire minute. My name is Peter Larkum. This has been Chandos Green. Take care. God bless. Look after yourselves. And bye-bye now. Thank you, everybody. Oh, what an amazing session. Thank you so much, Chandy. How do you feel?
Good. No, it was good. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, what a gift. And just like I say, thank you so much for the way that you spoke about what you've been going through and everything else. Thanks, Joe. It was really insightful and it's really helped me better understand because I find that sometimes when I'm talking through obsessive compulsive disorder in the training room, I'm so aware that I am underplaying it significantly. And I found that your talk has really helped me just to understand the exhaustion of it and that it's a battle the whole time. So thanks for that.
No,
How do you feel?
Good. I think it was good to have like something to look forward to today, like to be able to talk and to share what's going through. So it's been really positive. But I know my mum's in the corner of the chat there. So
Hang on,
I think
where's your mum?
Carmel.
Ah, hi Carmel. Nice to meet you.
So I think like having something to keep my mind focused has been really helpful. And so I think it's like, as you said, like it's always hard to know what to say when talking about OCD. Like even like me and I live with it, I sometimes can't explain it to people because it's so complex and so like it affects everyone so much in different ways that you can't always make everyone happy by talking about it. And so I think, yeah, I'm glad that it was positive for people that were watching.
Really positive, really helpful as well. And I found the examples that you gave were just really spot on. So thank you. And again, what I'm loving about these sessions is not only getting to know other Speakers Collective members, but kind of being able to get to know you, journey with you, and stay connected. Because we actually met at the Speakers Collective event back before Christmas now, and just how kind of seeing you on the chats, kind of session by session and week by week, and then kind of just, I can't remember who I was interviewing, but kind of just after you shaved your head, and we got into that kind of, what is this? And just feeling able to be building that relationship. And it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to. And I say this, Joe, with you on the line there, is that when we meet back as a Speakers Collective, I am going to know everyone in the room. Whereas before now, when I went to the last session that we did, which was the where Emmy and Hope were talking about eating disorders and the body image stuff, I didn't know anyone in that room. And I feel so different now because of the relationships that have been growing. So yeah, so just wanted to say thanks, really. And it'll be actually really quite nice to see everyone again when that happens. If that happens, who knows what is going to happen. But anyway, I'm going to call this meeting to an end and just say, Chandy, thank you so much again. for your time.
Thank you, Peter.
Look after yourself.
Lovely to see you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, buddy.